What's up, guys? Today we're talking about the Eibach Sportline lowering springs, and this is a really great option if you want to lower your car and you don't want to spend a lot of money, or if you just don't really need that aggressive of a drop. You're going to get a lot of the same benefits that you would have from being on coilovers, but without the expense and of course without some of the features. But it's a pretty simple set it and forget it solution if you want to live that low life. Now, we've been on these springs for 30,000 miles and had the pleasure of putting them on after only about 6 weeks of ownership. So we've been riding low this whole time and thoroughly enjoying it. It's a great option for a daily driver. Even if you wanted to take it to the track, you're going to enjoy this spring. Now, first things first, as far as getting these on, the process isn't going to be too much different from coilovers, but installation-wise, it's not too difficult. If you're mildly mechanically inclined, you should be able to pull it off. There's a number of instructional videos online that talk about it, and you could do it DIY in your garage, no problem. There are a couple things that could go wrong that you're going to want to be extra careful about, and if you're kind of a novice, you may want to skip it and hire somebody, but you don't want to mess up your CV axle or strip any nuts or anything like that. So if you're feeling a little questionable, maybe watch some videos and see how you feel, but this is totally something that you could pick up for relatively cheap, install yourself, and really upgrade the vehicle for your daily enjoyment. Now, one of the first things that you'll notice when you get the springs on is just the steering response is fantastic. You're just side-to-side movements in the vehicle. The body roll is greatly reduced, so you just really feel it gives you confidence. There's not as much play in the suspension, and someone cuts you off, or you need to make a sudden change in steering, it's going to go exactly where you point it to, and it feels pretty good. Even making just sudden lane changes, obviously don't be reckless, but all this kind of stuff, the car stays more planted, tires are on the ground, and it's just more fun, to be honest. Naturally, the track is going to be the best place to take advantage of the increased cornering speed, and you're going to want to be sensible in traffic and don't do anything crazy, but the additional control, and if you are in a safe environment to take some fun corners, you're going to be able to do that without fearing understeer, falling off the road, or any of that bad stuff. In addition to giving you a really fun drive in the twisties, something you might not think about with the lowering springs is that they actually make the car safer, to be honest. The increased control, the vehicle is just more predictable, and especially at high speeds. When you're on the highway, sudden lane changes, sudden movements, the vehicle just stays planted and it feels fantastic. Even if you make a sudden jerky maneuver, or hell, if you do it on purpose, it's just going to go where you point it, and it's a good time. But on top of that, it's safe. If somebody cuts you off and you have to change lanes suddenly, you can do that, and you're much less likely to lose control of the vehicle. If you decide to get these springs, you're going to enjoy the safety and the increased performance that I mentioned, but honestly, you're really going to want to upgrade your tires at the same time. I drove for a while on the stock tires, and it's definitely an improvement even with those, but man, oh man, if you get a great set of performance tires on your vehicle and put the springs on at the same time, it is a killer combo. The increased grip and the confidence that you have, man, it will handle anything, and it's a whole lot of fun. Now, in addition to the tires, of course, one thing that's going to come up is just running these springs on your vehicle without upgrading the shocks or struts at the same time. Now, you can do it. I did it for 30,000 miles. And there really hasn't been that much degradation in the ride quality in that time. You're going to see them wear out a little bit faster, but I mean, we're at 30K now. They really don't feel that much different than when they did stock. And comfort level, that's something people wonder about a lot. It still rides pretty comfortable. Bumps aren't really that harsh. I mean, quality-wise, ride quality, it feels pretty much like stock, but you've got that increased performance on top of it. So bang for buck wise, it's pretty hard to beat. Now, if they do make performance shocks and struts for your vehicle, and those are available and you can afford it, pick them up. You know, it'll be even better. We've got a full write-up about the pros and cons of riding on springs without shocks. We'll link that in the description. You can check that out as well. Additionally, we also have another video about just daily driving a lowered car and what it's like, getting over speed bumps, dips in the road like this one we got to slow down for. Some other cons that you might run into are the fact that the springs aren't going to be adjustable. And where this is going to come into play is if you want the vehicle to look a specific way, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. So on these, for example, you know, the front of the vehicle is always going to have like a little bit more clearance to account for the steering, so the springs are going to come with a relatively safe height drop in regards to that. So you might see the front of the car sitting a little bit higher than the rear, and so if you really wanted to have the exact fender gap that you want in the front and the back, you're gonna have to save up for coilovers. And that's just it. I mean, the other thing too, some people want to raise and lower their car for different seasons, whether it's winter or not. Again, these are set it and forget it. You're stuck with the height. So if that's important to you, you're going to have to go for the coilovers. The other thing that would be nice if you had coilovers is if you're, you know, since this is a daily driver and would like to go camping and haul things around like new sets of rims in the back, that's it. You're going to get a bunch of sag if you have a lot of weight in the back, and there's nothing you can do about it. Whereas with coilovers, you could at least pull them up a little bit to account for the extra weight. But with springs, you get what you get. You can tuck them in with some camber adjustments, or you're probably going to rub if you put too much stuff in the back. So you may run into issues with cutting your fenders or rubbing your tires. Camber Arms are going to help you out there, but again, something to consider. It is a limitation of a non-adjustable spring, but that's up to you.
All right, so a little bit more on the ride height of the Sportline spring for the Eibach. Obviously, it's not going to be adjustable, so it's a set it and forget it situation. Whatever you get when you put them on is what you get. And if you are really specific about what your car looks like when it's sitting, then adjustable coilovers might be for you. You can see we've got about one fat finger width of space here, and personally, I kind of want it to go down a little bit more. If we were going to have the vehicle for longer, that would definitely be the next step. Now, if you're running a more aggressive tire, like we were previously with the Inky RPF ones, you may run into some rubbing issues, which we'll take a look at in the back as well. But you can hit up somebody like Mr. Sexy S2K if you're in SoCal, and he is an expert, has the steadiest hand in the land, and he can cut you a clean line on your fenders to give you that extra clearance if you are running a wider spec tire. Let's check out the rear and see what that's like. All right, so in the back here, we were running this 255/35/18, which is about 1.5 inches wider than the stock tire. And so with that more aggressive fitment, we did run into some pretty severe rubbing issues in the back. There's a thick lip here that once we cut it off, that did give us some extra clearance, but even then it was still rubbing a little bit, which is where the SPC adjustable camber arms came into play. So we were able to pull that in, give it a little bit more negative camber, and that got rid of the rubbing issue. Of course, you're going to get some excessive interior tire wear on that, but you know, pimping ain't easy. So, you know, you got to keep those things in mind if you do want to run a more aggressive spec on a stickier, wider tire. But if you're running the stock boys still, no issues at all. You might not even really need the SPC arms, and you've still got about a finger of clearance here.
So after 30,000 miles, what are some final thoughts? Well, we've thoroughly enjoyed the vehicle with these springs on here. Like I said, no real degradation in ride quality so far. Maybe, you know, if there is degradation, it's going to be such a slow roll that it's hard to notice. At 30K, I'm not really noticing too much, but another 30K, you know, which may be time to replace the shocks anyway. You might want to. I don't consider that a big deal. Beyond that, something you might want to do is get a front and rear sway bar. This is going to give you even more lateral stability. And I don't know, maybe overkill for the street, probably. But if you did want to track the car, that's something I would look into. Not terribly expensive, and Eibach makes kit for that as well. So the combo would be pretty rad if you were tracking or if you're just super serious about your daily build. In addition to the sport lines, Eibach also offers the Pro kit, and this is an even milder version of their lowering spring. If you want a similar performance to the sport line, but your driving location isn't really conducive to being as low as the sport lines are, the Pro kit, to be honest, almost doesn't even look like it's lowered. But if that's what you want, it's going to be perfect. You still maintain some ground clearance, but you're going to have a very similar performance quality with the Pro kit spring. So between the Pro kit and the Eibach Sportline, both a very great streetable option for a daily driver. You'll love the performance, and if you want to get serious and upgrade to coilovers later, sell your springs online like everyone else. If you have any questions about Eibach springs or any other suspension setup, feel free to hit us up in the comments, or as usual, go to shocksurplus.com. We'll take care of you.